Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello there folks, how you doing today? We're here today to talk a little bit about this whole thing with Colburn, the lawsuit that Colburn is bringing in. And the fact that Michael Greisbach is the one alongside of him is amazing to me, and I think shows maybe some true colors of Michael Greisbach, to be perfectly honest. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. So, obviously there's, Colburn, claims that the filmmakers misrepresented the call that he made on what it was, the 3rd or the 4th, whichever. It seems to have been disputed about which day that happened now, but whether it was the 3rd or 4th, either way, it's before the 5th. So, all that, he claims that they used tricky editing or whatever. Okay, so fine, let's just forget about that part. Let's act like Andrew Colburn didn't make a suspicious phone call at all. Let's just pretend he didn't call in the plate numbers and everything of the exact vehicle. He didn't know what make it was, before the dispatcher could tell him. He didn't know any of those things, right? And let's just pretend. We'll pretend that little part is gone, and then the little tricky editing that was used by the filmmakers. Okay, so that's out of the equation. Well, let's look at the clip I have today. Let's look at the shady things that Andrew Colburn is doing. When you look at the totality of it, with Colburn, and it looks like he's being dishonest, it looks like he's being shady, and he looks like he's trying to hide stuff. And the other thing on top of all that is Michael Greisbach is actually, along with Mark Rohrer, one of the ones that failed to send the stuff about the Brown County Police Department calling Colburn and telling Colburn in the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department that they had the wrong guy for something, because they had a guy that they were questioning that was taking credit for it, and said there was somebody in their jail doing time for a crime that guy had committed, right? And instead of even trying to look into it, instead of doing any number of things besides absolutely nothing for 8 years. That's what they did. Absolutely nothing for 8 years. Then suddenly, the day after Stephen Avery's released, Colburn writes a statement, right? It's ridiculous. And like I said, the irony isn't lost on me that it's Michael Greisbach, the one who failed to send that information in to Peg Lautenschlager when they originally tried to report this whole fiasco that was created in 1985. And they sent that information to Peg, to the AG, and they didn't send the information about that call. They were protecting Colburn then. Why? Why were they protecting Colburn then, I wonder? What connections, I wonder, do Greisbach and Colburn have? I don't know. But anyway, let's go ahead and move into the clips, and we'll see you here shortly.
No, sir.
Have you ever planted any evidence against Mr. Avery?
I have to say that this is the first time my integrity has ever been questioned, and no, I have not.
That's all I have of Sergeant Colburn, Judge. Thank you.
This is the...
Well, Andy, if it is, in fact, the first time your integrity has been questioned, that's only because your current counsel, Mr. Greisbach, he failed to send the information that you received a call from Brown County Police Department, saying that they had somebody that they were questioning that claimed to have committed a crime who somebody in your, or that you had, convicted essentially, was doing time for. And the fact that you took that call and all that stuff, and then suddenly 8 years later, write as you will call it here, a statement, right? These things all look. I mean, you guys want to claim Netflix used tricky editing or whatever. Well, okay, fine. Let's throw out you finding the RAV4, or let's throw out you calling in the RAV4 on the 3rd or the 4th, whatever day that is, right? Let's just rule that out, right? Let's just look at your conduct alone in this line of questioning from Dean Strang. Let's explore this a little bit.
First time your integrity's been questioned.
As it applies to being a police officer, yes.
Okay. And it's not the first time Mr. Avery's has been, so I have some questions for you. November 3, 2005, when you learned Teresa Halbach was missing, was just 3 weeks after your deposition in Stephen Avery's lawsuit.
Yes, sir.
As shift commander, you could have assigned anyone in the road patrol to go out to the address on Avery Road.
Yes.
You chose to do it yourself.
Yes.
Did you go alone?
Yes, I did.
When, sir, did you first make a written report of anything having to do with the November 3, 2005 meeting with Mr. Avery?
June of 06, I believe.
That is, it was almost 8 months after that conversation with Stephen Avery, the first conversation with him in this investigation, that you wrote down what you say he said to you back on November 3.
Okay, at this point, I want to point out that one of the things that guilters point to try to suggest that Stephen is a liar or that Stephen doesn't tell the truth is statements like Andrew Colburn's. Okay? They say that Andrew Colburn was there on the 3rd and that he talked to Stephen and that Stephen said these things or whatever according to Andrew Colburn. Okay? And then they have other statements. All from third parties. Never ever are they getting these statements coming out of Stephen's mouth. Okay? It's always somebody, a third party, who is reporting Stephen's words, and they don't match the words that we hear when Stephen is on camera or whatever, where Steve says the same things every time we see him on camera and stuff. Not with these secondhand reports, these third-party reports, basically. They all basically try to change Stephen's words. They try to make it, and as you're hearing here, that Andrew Colburn waited 8 months to log his conversation with Stephen. 8 months later, he decided to assign statements to Stephen in order to try to incriminate him, it looks like. Whatever the reason is that he waited 8 months. And I guarantee you his memory of the situation, I mean, if the conversation had been so damning, he would have logged it right away. He wouldn't have waited 8 months, right? I mean, why was he waiting 8 months? Why? First he waits 8 years, now he waits 8 months. What is it with Colburn and waiting in a period of 8 whatever? What's the next thing going to be? He's going to wait 8 weeks and have a baby? Whatever. Anyway, it's just bizarre with him. And like I said, why does he wait so long to do anything like these and file these reports or statements? Why is he waiting so long? Anyways, that's my point, is that, these statements like what they're talking about here, about what Dean's talking about here, where it's the statement that Andrew has claimed and has associated to Stephen Avery. But the odd circumstances surrounding Colburn and his report of this statement from Stephen on the 3rd, right? It's just bizarre. So, here, we'll go back to it.
Yes, sir.
The Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department had, by their own admission, in fact, they're the first one that brought it up, that there was a conflict of interest there. And a conflict of interest in the investigation of a crime is probably the most serious violation any investigating agency can make, because it brings into question their credibility and actions throughout the case. If I had to guess, I would say that they declared it a conflict of interest to dot the I's and cross the T's. They didn't implement the procedure that would follow a conflict of interest, and that is quite simply to totally back off. They continued their active role in the investigation. They developed most of the evidence, and when they took on that role that they shouldn't have, they also committed themselves to proving Stephen Avery had committed the crime.
Yeah, and I'm really curious, Colburn and Greisbach, is how you're going to blame the fact that you guys didn't observe the conflict of interest. You didn't actually do what you normally do when there's a conflict of interest. How do you explain that one? How is that the Netflix filmmaker's fault? How are you going to blame that one on them? These are all choices you idiots made. It's so funny to me. And you want to blame it on Netflix. Well, Netflix called attention to it, but it's your deeds. It's your deeds. I just find this to be very disingenuous from Greisbach and Colburn. You know, the fact of the matter is they were doing... Colburn, you know, is not looking very good in this. You know, he can try to claim that the filmmakers misrepresented one little thing here or there, whatever. The fact of the matter is his deeds speak volumes. He's a freaking jerk, really. He doesn't care until he wants to cover his ass. That's when he cares, suddenly. That's Colburn. So, anyway, back to the tulips.
So you're in the house on November 5, November 6, November 7, November 8. True?
Yes, sir.
There was no time that you went into Mr. Avery's home when you were not also with Lieutenant Lank.
No, sir.
No time you went in Mr. Avery's garage when Lieutenant Lank was not also with you?
Not that I recall.
This case you would describe as the largest investigation in which you personally have participated as a law enforcement officer?
Yes, sir.
Law enforcement agencies involved have generated thousands of pages of police reports.
Yes, sir.
Your total contribution is, what, a little bit under half a page?
Correct.
The report that you filed makes no mention of the Toyota key.
That's correct, sir.
Were there things that you did not want to commit to paper in a report?
No, sir.
While we're on Stephen Avery and your reports about him, that phone call, the phone call where a detective from another law enforcement agency told you you may have the wrong guy in jail, that one?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever write a report about that?
No, I did not, sir.
Well, actually you did, didn't you? It was about 8 years later, wasn't it?
I wrote a statement on it, yes, sir.
You wrote that statement in 2003, the day after Stephen Avery finally walked out of prison, didn't you?
I don't know what day Steve was released from prison, but I wrote the statement in 2003.
That's all I have.
Sergeant Colburn, back in 1994 or 95, if you would have written a report, what would it have been about?
I don't know what it would have been about. If I wrote a report about every call that came in, I would spend my whole day writing reports.
That's all the redirect I have of this witness. Thank you very much, Sergeant.
Mr. Strang?
How many calls have you ever gotten from another police officer suggesting you had the wrong guy in jail?
I don't know. I can't recall any others.
So, I will just wrap up by saying, Andy, you got plenty you got plenty of things that make you look dishonest or disingenuous, however you want to look at it. And I'll tell you what, I'm not just a little bit interested in why Michael Greisbach is continuously protecting you. First, he didn't send the information about the phone call from Brown County Police Department, and that you took back in 95, right? He didn't send that information over to the AG's office with all the other information that he collected about the 1985 conviction. I mean, why is Michael Greisbach your protector? Why is he always, why is he representing you now? Why was he protecting you back then? I'm highly intrigued by this, so I'll obviously be keeping my eyes open. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you